Florida. 3 separate cameras captured all of it. From the moment that Robert Mueller's PR team from CNN arrived with a tripod to Roger Stone's arrest at gunpoint. You won't believe the T-shirt Stone was wearing when they cuffed him. We're staying for that. And then lunatics in the Congress have a brand new plan to destroy our economy and drive America into darkness and poverty. It's called the Green New Deal, and we'll talk to one of its supporters in just a second. Also, the media are supposed to hold the powerful to account. That's what they always tell you. If that's true, why are they sucking up to the world's richest man, Jeff Bezos? Why are they calling him Bezos Bear? Because he's the world's richest man. We've got hilarious details in a second. But first tonight, more chaos in the beleaguered Commonwealth of Virginia. That state's Democratic governor and attorney general, as you know, have both admitted to blackface scandals. One of them has been called upon by Democratic luminaries to resign. Neither one has shown any intent to leave office. Now, that state's slippery lieutenant governor, Justin Fairfax, has been accused of rape for the second time by a second woman. New allegations just hours ago. Fairfax says he's not resigning either. For the latest on the glowing fireball of insanity that is Virginia Democratic politics, Fox's Ellison Barber is live outside the State House in Richmond, Virginia. Ellison?
Hi, Tucker. Calls for the lieutenant governor to resign are growing tonight. It's difficult to keep track of how many people have now come forward and said that he needs to step aside. All of this after a second woman came forward detailing a second sexual assault that she claims happened with Justin Fairfax. A Virginia state delegate says if the lieutenant governor does not resign by the end of the weekend, he will introduce articles of impeachment on Monday. The lieutenant governor is denying all of the allegations against him. In a statement, he said this, quote, "I have never forced myself on anyone ever. I demand a full investigation into these unsubstantiated and false allegations." He called the claims part of a vicious and coordinated smear campaign. According to a press release from the law firm Smith Mullen, they are representing a woman named Meredith Watson, who says she was raped by now Lieutenant Governor Justin Fairfax in 2000 when they were both students at Duke University. The statement says, quote, "Mr. Fairfax's attack was premeditated and aggressive. There were the two were friends but never dated or had any romantic relationship." The lieutenant governor was optimistic this morning, briefly speaking to reporters as he headed to preside over a legislative session in the Virginia Senate, saying, "We will have our say. I am confident in the truth." Tonight, in a statement, he is defiant and clearly says, "I will not resign," even though a lot of Democrats now want him to. Senator Cory Booker tweeted this, quote, "The multiple detailed allegations against the lieutenant governor of Virginia are deeply troubling. They are serious, credible, and corroborated by others. It is no longer appropriate for him to serve. He should resign." And now attorneys for this second victim, they have come out with a new statement saying that the lieutenant governor is trying to smear their client. They say they had heard that he had told various members of the media that she is crazy and she had been the victim of a prior rape. They say that it is true that she was the victim of a prior assault, but they say that Lieutenant Governor Justin Fairfax actually used that prior assault, which she reportedly had told him about, in order to justify the assault that he allegedly perpetrated. They say the pair had one encounter after the alleged assault in 2000 at a campus party, and this is from the statement here. She left the campus party when he arrived and he followed her out. She turned and asked, "Why did you do it?" Mr. Fairfax answered, "I knew that because of what happened to you last year, you'd be too afraid to say anything." We've reached out to the Lieutenant Governor's office on this new statement. So far, Tucker, we have not heard back.
Hard to remember a seedier story than this one. Ellison Barber, thank you very much from Richmond for us tonight. So what's going to happen to the 3 top-ranking elected Democrats in the Commonwealth of Virginia? And more broadly, what's the standard for the rest of us in the wake of this scandal? Chris Hahn is a progressive radio show host, and he joins us tonight. Chris, thanks a lot for coming on. And I should just say, and I mean this sincerely, I don't know the truth of the allegations against Lieutenant Governor Fairfax, and I think he is due, as we all are, the right to explain himself and to have this adjudicated by some impartial body. So I'm not passing judgment on him or his accuser. I'm passing judgment on the self-appointed defenders of women who just a couple of months ago jumped up and down and told us that Brett Kavanaugh deserved to be in prison because we must believe all women, and yet they're dismissing these women. They clearly don't believe them. Where's Mazie Hirono? Where's Kirsten Gillibrand in all of this? What's the answer?
Well, I don't know that they've dismissed this woman. I sure haven't. It seems to me like he's toast like he's done. There'll be an investigation, but he's not surviving this. These women seem credible to me. The stories seem chilling, and we should all be appalled by it. Now, should this turn out to be some sort of real political hit job, which I don't think it is, then maybe he survives. But barring that, his career is over and he needs to resign. Now, I know we have two other Democrats in top positions in Virginia who also have issues that we need to deal with. And I have already called for the governor to resign on this show last week, and I am not taking that back. I think his statements on Saturday made it worse than they were on Friday night. And we'll see what people think about the attorney general. But I think people need to be consistent when they make calls for things.
Well, I think that's you're taking a. I mean, agree or disagree, you're taking a position that is undergirded by integrity. I mean, consistency is right. I'm just a little, I mean, just as an American, I think I'm most disgusted by this Mark Herring character, the chief law enforcement officer in the state of Virginia, purely because of the hypocrisy. He jumps up and down when he finds out that the governor has this yearbook in blackface, and then it turns out that he appeared in blackface too. So why shouldn't he resign?
Yeah.
That's the most confusing part of this to me.
Look, I think he came out and he apologized, and I think maybe, we might determine that he should resign. He was 19 years old, and he did something really stupid and, quite frankly, offensive and racist that should not be tolerated in this country. So we'll see what his fate holds. The people of Virginia should ultimately be able to make.
Well, I mean, you're absolutely right. No, you make a fair point.
There should be some sort of petition to get rid of him.
Okay, but that's not the standard. Look, I think voters should make all these decisions, and if someone commits a crime in office, impeach him. We have a method for removing people who shouldn't be serving, and it's not Twitter. My question is about the standards that the Democratic Party applies to the rest of us. So Northam did something that was beyond the pale, and Cory Booker and all these other totally false, self-righteous chest beaters who really have no reason to lecture the rest of us about how to live, I would say. But I mean, I'm serious. I live here, okay? But the point is, they don't apply the same standard to this guy because they don't want the seat to wind up in Republican hands. That's the actual truth, as you know.
Look, something needs to be said for the voters of Virginia who chose 3 Democrats for statewide office, and something has to be done to preserve the will of the people. Whether these 3 men should serve, that needs to be determined. I really think that the top 2 need to go right now. I think they're both unfit for office, and the third one, I think he's teetering on the edge. But Virginia needs to do something to make sure that the will of the people is actually recognized.
Do you think
that's something that has to be determined?
Hypocrisy is certainly not just a Democratic problem. There are a ton of hypocrites on the right, too.
Sure, absolutely. I mean, I call it out every week on my radio
but
show.
But the intensity of the hypocrisy in the last week is kind of hard to ignore. So if you've appeared in blackface, you can't serve in public office, you can't stand on a public stage, you really need to be pushed outside of polite company. And now it turns out that all these prominent progressives have appeared in blackface. I mean, that's a pretty high level of hypocrisy. Have you noticed that, or am I just imagining it?
It's not all of these. It's 2 men in Virginia, and frankly, we don't want to replace.
I mean, it's
It's
Joy Behar, and it's okay, but it's a lot of the people who are the quickest to judge others turned out to have worn this blackface themselves. That doesn't you don't notice a theme here, attacking people for what you do?
I think that there needs to be something done about the people who serve in public office. It's a higher calling than, and a higher standard than people who are entertainers and other things. We need to focus on that. We need to remove these people. We need to put people in there who care about Virginia and care about the values that these men were elected to defend. Voters of Virginia wanted people like them there because of what they said on the campaign about their values and governance. They did not know about their histories with women and with blackface and racism. Now they know it, and the voters of Virginia should be heard. And the voters of Virginia
so I just want to correct, and we're out of time, but I just want to get the final word and correct something. Yep. Apparently, Senator Mazie Hirono of Hawaii has called on Lieutenant Governor Justin Fairfax to resign.
And you'll hear more.
So she's consistent that way. Chris Hahn, thank you very much.
Thank you, Tucker.
So let's say these weren't 3 progressive Democrats at the helm of the Commonwealth of Virginia, but they were 3 conservative Republicans. What would that look like? Dan Bongino is a former congressional candidate, former Secret Service agent. He joins us tonight. So Dan, I mean, do you notice the political imperative overriding moral concerns here?
Yeah, I mean, this is a very simple binary choice here, Tucker. Is it going to be power or is it going to be principle? If the standard here in your principles are, as the Democrats have stated, and I think a lot of people would agree that, listen, blackface is unacceptable in a position of public prominence. You have to go. You handle that on your own later, but you can't govern. Then Mark Herring has to go, the Attorney General, and the governor. That's the principle, right, Tucker? I mean, there's nothing I'm saying controversial.
That's their stated principle.
Exactly, but
for the record, I think it's ridiculous. I think calling for infanticide actually might make it impossible for you to govern because it's murder. Sure. Dressing up like an idiot or being a bigot in college is something that you should apologize for. I'm not sure that 35 years later it makes it impossible for you to govern, but whatever. But you're right. That's their standard, and they've stated it clearly.
They've been on the record that this is, but notice how it became a little more nuanced, Tucker, when they found out that the fourth person in line, the Virginia Speaker, is a Republican. Now all of a sudden there's a little more nuance in the argument. Again, is this binary or is it not? If it's about principles, which they've already stated openly, then you must call for both of them to resign. Now, talking about the number two, Justin Fairfax, the lieutenant governor. I mean, we went through this with Kavanaugh. If you've watched this station or any other cable news network, we went through this for 2 troubling weeks where I don't think there's a Democrat on the record actually defending Kavanaugh. So again, if the principle there is all women are to be believed, accusations are in fact enough evidence for you to leave, and that you have no right to defend yourself, then Tucker, this is all clear. The answers are clear as day by, as you stated, the Democrats' own on-the-record statements they've already made.
And I think that may be kind of percolating up to members of the Senate. Apparently, Kirsten Gillibrand has just on Twitter called for the resignation of Lieutenant Governor Justin Fairfax. So we'll see what happens there. Dan Bongino, thank you very much.
You got it.
Good to see you tonight. Well, Jeff Bezos wrote a piece on Medium yesterday saying he was extorted by the National Enquirer. Is it true? I don't know. We know who's on his side, though. The media. Why? He's rich. Plus, exclusive new video tonight of the FBI raid claims that he has been the victim of an extortion plot, not by ISIS or some international criminal syndicate out of a James Bond movie, but by the National Enquirer, the supermarket tabloid. When you page through as you're unloading groceries from your cart. Trace Gallagher has been following the story since the beginning, and he joins us tonight. Hey, Trace.
Hey, Tucker, he owns the Washington Post, but Jeff Bezos chose to make his stand on a blogging platform called Medium, where he posted details of the alleged extortion, including messages sent to him from the National Enquirer, its parent company America Media, and its CEO David Pecker, threatening to release intimate photos of Bezos and his girlfriend Lauren Sanchez unless Bezos agreed to call off his investigation of how the Enquirer got the pictures, and then issue a statement saying the investigation that uncovered the affair was not politically motivated. Well, Bezos refused, writing, quote, "Of course I don't want personal photos published, but I also won't participate in their well-known practice of blackmail, political favors, political attacks, and corruption." America Media has now responded, saying it wasn't blackmail. The messages were good faith negotiations. Quoting again, America Media believes fervently that it acted lawfully in the reporting of the story of Mr. Bezos. But David Pecker says the company will conduct an internal investigation into what, if any, action needs to be taken. And to up the ante, federal prosecutors are now looking into the National Enquirer's handling of the Bezos affair. As for how the intimate photos were leaked in the first place, a reporter for the Washington Post says he has spoken with Bezos' lead security consultant. Watch.
Gavin DeBecker told us that he does not believe that Jeff Bezos' phone was hacked. He thinks it's possible that a government entity might have gotten hold of his text messages.
Earlier, Gavin DeBecker, the security consultant, said publicly he thought the brother of Bezos' mistress, Lauren Sanchez, played a role in leaking those private photos and texts. Tucker.
Mr. Mustard with a candlestick. Trace, thank you very much. So there are a lot of confusing parts about this story, but one thing that is crystal clear is where the media stands. Journalists love Jeff Bezos. Now, some of them literally work for him at his personal PR operation / lobbying shop. It's called the Washington Post. But even those who don't take his money directly think Jeff Bezos is great. Why do they think that? Well, because he's rich. He's the richest man in the world, in fact. Of course, journalists will tell you that their job is to hold the powerful to account. Pretty funny. In real life, they assiduously suck up to power. They can't help themselves. The more powerful, the more flamboyant they're groveling. Louis XIV never had more self-effacing manservants. May I wash your feet, sir? How about a hot bath? Watch.
Bezos, the wealthiest man in the world, the founder of Amazon, going from being the punchline of this sordid affair to all of a sudden becoming praised as a hero of journalism. He has pulled off a masterstroke in terms of recasting his own image, in terms of making himself look like a good guy again.
Makes him almost human. Just like Us Magazine, hey, he's just like you and me, you know, and he's playing this brilliantly.
There is a certain amount of badassness about Jeff Bezos that I think makes us all proud to work for him. They mess with the wrong guy, and they have found that out.
As a source close to Bezos told me last night, do not poke this Bezos bear.
Oh, he's a bear now! Not a dorky accounting major with an entirely predictable midlife crisis and a sad but obvious steroid problem. No, he's a powerful, masculine bear, a grizzly. Don't mess with Jeff Bezos. Growl. Jeff Bezos is so tough that Donald Trump just can't handle him. There's only room for one alpha bear in this town, so Trump is trying to take out Bezos Bear with a far-reaching secret conspiracy. Seriously, that's what they're saying.
We know how he despises Jeff Bezos. Is AMI still doing Trump's dirty work? What is going on here?
I don't know. I mean, the two leading theories seem to be that AMI is either doing the Saudis' dirty work, President Trump's dirty work, or a combination of the two.
Trump has had a hard-on for Bezos, so it's no surprise that he turned to his good buddy David Pecker at the Inquirer to do a hatchet job on him.
Suddenly the left believes in the deep state. We can't let them hurt Bezos Bear. It's hilarious and nauseating. All right, Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez says her Green New Deal will save the planet. In exchange, we just give up cars and airplanes and rebuild every structure in the United States. We'll also, by the way, need to invent brand new forms of energy that science hasn't conceived of yet. How much will this cost? That's unclear. How will we pay for it? Unknown. Who will make this happen? Well, workers, obviously, though anyone who is, quote, unwilling to work will still get paid by the government. In other words, not all of the details have been ironed out as of tonight, and that's why we're grateful that Robert Hockett is here. He's a law professor at Cornell. He's advising Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez on the Green New Deal, and he joins us. Professor, thanks very much for coming on. So can I just ask the obvious question, why would we ever pay people who are, quote, unwilling to work?
We never would, right? And AOC has never said anything like that, right? I think you're referring to some sort of document that some doctored document that somebody other than us has been circulating.
Oh, I thought that came right from her. That was in the background or from her office, is my understanding.
No. She's actually tweeted it out to laugh at it. If you look at her latest tweets, it seems that apparently some Republicans have put it out there. I don't know the details.
Good. Well, then thank you for correcting me. I mean, because it seemed a little ridiculous. Almost as ridiculous as the idea that we're going to build enough light rail to make airplanes unnecessary, which I think actually is from the plan.
I don't know where you got that either, Tucker. I actually believe that you're actually on our side about this if you actually read the actual plan, right? There's nothing about getting rid of anything. It's about expanding menu options, right? I mean, there are many, many things we want to be able to do now in addition to what we already do. So where's the airplane disappearance coming from? I'm not really clear on where that originates. Well,
I could actually get it for you. This is
that would be great.
Frequently asked questions released by her office. And I'm quoting from it. Maybe this is fraudulent, in which case I hope you'll correct me. But it says that the Green New Deal would, and I'm quoting, totally overhaul transportation, and that would mean, quote, building out high-speed rail at a scale where air travel would stop becoming necessary. Hawaii Senator Mazie Hirono responded to that by saying that would be hard for Hawaii. So I don't think that's made up. The senator from Hawaii
but I mean, it apparently is being misunderstood, right? We're really talking about expanding optionality here. We're not talking about getting rid of anything, right? We're talking about basically making it cost effective to move into more modern forms of technology, more modern forms of production, which would then enable people actually cost effectively to transition to that stuff. We're talking about requiring anything or prohibiting anything. That's sort of 1980s style environmentalism.
Okay, but hold on. I don't want you to back away from what she herself has said. And all of this with the caveat that, a lot of this won't happen, maybe none of it, but these are the ideas that she's articulating. She did so on NBC last week.
I promise you, Tucker, I won't back away from anything she said. Indeed, we're pushing forward, right?
Then she said, well, yeah, at high speed.
Very high speed.
That we're going to supplant all fossil fuels in 12 years.
Yes.
So,
yes.
Okay, so that would mean...
That doesn't mean stop. That doesn't mean prohibiting them. It means rendering them obsolete by doing something better. And we can do it. This is America.
Then good. Then I'm glad. And it's nice to have a smart person on the show to explain this. What about air travel, which is critical to our economy? This is a continental country.
It's the same.
Okay,
right?
but no, because that requires fossil fuel.
We're talking about carbon neutrality. Remember, we're talking about net zero emissions. That doesn't mean that there's never any burning of anything, right? I mean, until we come up with solar panel flying airplanes, of course, we're not.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. I just want to correct. Because this seemed like we were making news on this show. The unwilling to work thing was in her backgrounder. That has been absolutely confirmed. You're saying no.
Definitely not. Definitely not.
Okay, so NBC and lots of other news outlets are saying that was in the background, and you're saying it's fraudulent.
That's erroneous, right? Now, there might be new details now that you know about that I don't, because I've been doing media all day. But the story all day...
Yeah, I think that was actually in the document. I read it as it came out.
Well, it's the wrong document, Tucker.
It's definitely the wrong document.
That's not us. No, we certainly don't believe anything like that, right? So
what you're saying is we're not getting rid of fossil fuels, actually, even though you just said we were.
No, we're rendering them obsolete for most purposes they're used for now, right?
But air travel is a huge source,
hence the word most before, right? We eliminate them for most purposes for which they're used now. By rendering them obsolete.
So I've got 2 gasoline-powered cars at home.
But imagine how much better it's going to be when it's cost-effective to drive electric cars. But that can't be done simply by individuals, right? You have to coordinate. You have to have charging stations everywhere. And, of course, individuals can't do that, right? So in that sense, the government is acting like a kind of orchestra conductor here. We're trying to coordinate some of that stuff that can only be centrally coordinated and then enable everybody to act individually within that framework, right?
Yeah, I don't fully understand what you're saying, but let me on the low end, this would be the most expensive thing that the United States has ever undertaken, including rural electrification, the Second World War. And I'm just kind of wondering, in a country that's got more debt than it has GDP, how would we pay for that?
Well, here's the key, right? Remember that we racked up enormous debt to finance the Second World War effort and the New Deal and, of course, the interstate highway system in the 50s. But here's the key point. Here's a takeaway. I want you to remember this. I hope everybody will remember this. Remember that inflation is a relation, right? It's the relation between the quantity of money and the quantity of goods. Now, if the money that you're spending is resulting in the production of a great many more goods, you have no inflation problem. More production absorbs more expenditure. The problem with the $7 trillion that was spent during the Bush years and, of course, the last tax cut was that it wasn't actually productive. But note that even that didn't bring about inflation.
Okay,
right?
We're still not getting close to it. And by the way, I'm just getting all this in my ear, and we're actually going to follow up on this next week.
Okay.
That unwilling to work line, which you're obviously embarrassed about, and you should be, of course.
No, I'm not embarrassed.
That
it's just not
in
us.
the document.
It's not embarrassing. No, Tucker. No, Tucker. No. We're not embarrassed by what's not ours. No, Tucker. We're not embarraed by what's not ours. Okay.
We want to clarify that it's not ours.
Yes, we are.
We're going to prove it one way or the other, and I hope you will come back.
I will.
Professor, thank you.
Thanks so much.
I'm glad. I'm always grateful when people on the other side come on, including you. Thank you. Well, the billionaires of Silicon Valley are ripping off their employees and shifting the cost to you. One member of Congress is offended by this anyway, and he will join us after the break.
So cute. And anyone who thinks that they're going to be coerced into promiscuity by a paper napkin has some other things they have to worry about. I mean, but the idea that you know, that they're just
it's real.
It's like on the old Matchbook, right?
Yeah.
Dana Perino and her husband also met on a plane.
That's true. See?
Also, I think
Delta
she
was
had an
onto
article
something.
about it and was saying, I don't know if there's like, I'm trying to remember back to it, but it was basically encouraging the fact of talking to people.
It does make sense. I mean, you're stuck there for hours, and you're definitely around people
That's also the
who are
downside.
You might as well
interesting,
speed date while you're there,
yeah,
right?
But I've
Well,
never
just
been
one
sat next.
napkin.
But has anyone ever been sat next to anyone? I've